Hi, everyone. My name is Levi Thompson. I'm a professor here at the University of Texas at Austin in the Department of Middle Eastern Studies and the director of the Center for Middle Eastern Studies. And the question before us today is, what is the Middle East? Most people, when we say the term the Middle East, are thinking about an area that's around here. Now, exactly how wide changes from person to person. Are we talking about going from all the way in Pakistan to Morocco here in North Africa, and then from north to south from, say, Kazakhstan to Yemen? Maybe. Other folks, when they say Middle East, they mean a more limited area here. The core of the Arab world, the corner of North Africa here in Egypt, and then Syria, Iraq, Palestine, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Oman, Yemen, and the Gulf countries. Now, these are two different areas of the globe, obviously, as far as the coverage of the Middle East, what we might actually be talking about. But this is the core of what we mean when we say Middle East, and then some people might include many more countries that border on this region generally. The Middle East has this relational concept, middle. The middle of what? Well, it depends on our perspective, because this idea of the East goes back really to a Western perspective and understanding of the Orient, that is, the things that are over there to the East. Why is the West the starting point when we start thinking about what exactly the Middle East is? Because we say middle because it's relational to folks in the West. There's a long history here, and it has to do with colonialism. That is, the exploitation of peoples in other lands for either their labor or the resources that are in those lands by other countries. Of course, we're probably familiar with how colonialism originates in the West during the medieval and late medieval, early modern period, and then moves across the globe. Two organizations that are important in this history are the British East India Company, which is founded in the year 1600 and lasts all the way until 1874. And then just 2 years after the foundation of the British East India Company, we also have the Dutch East India Company, founded in 1602, and they go defunct in 1799. So this is really the height of the colonial period, and we're fairly certain that the term the Middle East emerges in documents in those two companies' archives. Why? Because their goal is trade in India and in China. So the Far East, if you will, but in between the UK and the Netherlands and India and China, we have this other area. It's in the middle. So folks that worked in these colonial corporations began to refer to this area of the world as the Middle East. So this is why the West is at the center of this terminology, really, because it's relational. Folks are looking east from where they are over here in Europe. Folks have more recently come up with other terms, such as the Middle East and North Africa, but here we still have Middle East, the middle of what? North Africa makes more sense because this is a geographical term, so the northern part of the African continent. Other folks use this term, Southwest Asia and North Africa, SWANA for short. This one's pretty good too because it's basically a geographical term, southwest part of the Asian continent and North Africa to refer to this general part of the globe. And another thing that we might mention here is that folks within the area we call the Middle East have used the Middle East to refer to this area as well in their own languages. In Arabic, we have Asharq al-Awsat, literally the Middle East. In Persian, we have Khavar Miyane, the Middle East. And in Turkish, we have Orta Doğu, which means, as far as I know, Middle East as well. All of this is adopted from the Western conception of Middle East. So now we've come to the big question. What's the best way to define these regions of the globe? Do we use geographical terms about the continents that we've been talking about? Is it relational? Or sometimes people might use a religious definition, like the Muslim world. But this creates problems too, because what you might not be aware of this, but the most populous Muslim country actually isn't in the Middle East. It's Indonesia over here, which we wouldn't be able to classify as Middle Eastern at all. So there are issues with all of these. The problem with the geographic definition, MENA or SWANA, is that people don't really know what these terms are outside of where I work in academia, at college. So now I want us to think about the second item I had here in my list of how we might define Middle East, or any area on the globe really, but are we thinking geographically, relationally, or religiously, or in other terms? So I have my little people here, and I want to show how, if say you're Mr. Purple here, and you are right smack dab in what we call the Middle East, or SWANA, or MENA. Here I'm at the nexus of the continent of Asia and of Africa. And I've got my teal guy, he's over here in Europe. And then I've got another guy who's over here in at the border between India and China. So middle, in this case, is clearly Mr. Purple, but near and far are relational to the teal fella who's over here, where exactly in, let's say, Great Britain. So to Mr. Teal, this is the middle of what's east of him, but say I'm Mr. Red over here in China or India, I'm not thinking that I'm necessarily in the far east, right? But I might say that Mr. Teal is in the far west, right? Now, Mr. Purple to Mr. Red could still be in the middle, but he'd be in the Midwest. Now, if you're from the United States, the Midwest means something entirely different, right? So it's all relational. Now, overall, I think it's okay to use the term Middle East because people understand what it is, kind of. It does depend on a lot of different factors. What countries exactly we put into this category of Middle East. And hopefully now you have a better conception of where this term comes from and these different ways that academics like myself and lay people as well have defined this area in terms of both geography and relationally to where the onlooker is and their perspective on the world. Thanks very much, everyone.